A slate of topics to talk about today. We are going to talk about growing vegetables for state fair, looking at large vegetables, sick plants, mushrooms, cucumbers, and what's going on in the garden right now, plus a lot of other things. But as always, we're going to start off our garden hour. Let me come over here. And first, I want to just talk about the horticulture specialists that are scattered around the state. I am coming from you from Nottoway County up in northwest Missouri, and you can see that each region has its own horticulture specialist. So feel free to reach out to them as needed, or if you happen to be in a border county and want to reach across to someone else, that is perfectly fine too. We are all here to support each other. In addition, I just wanted to talk about that there are many ways that you can join the Garden Hour. You can go to YouTube at the web address that you see here and watch us live. Also on that site, you will see our snippets and also a full recording of past horticulture hours, or garden hours, so you can kind of go back and look at things. So with that, I would like to stop sharing here, and I'm going to turn it over to Zack to talk about all of this rain that we're getting up here in northwest Missouri.
Thank you, Gwen. And as I'm getting ready to start sharing my screen here, it actually looks like you all might have yet another round of showers heading your way here in Nottoway County after not too soon. But before I really start digging into the rainfall again this week, I did want to share that we now have our official statewide data from NOAA for April, which allows us to continue looking at our year-to-date for 2024 Missouri State Climate Summary. And so April wrapped up as a warmer than average month temperature-wise. So our temperatures statewide average was 4.2 degrees Fahrenheit above our normal. And this was enough for Missouri's 13th warmest April on record, going back to 1895. So not nearly as warm as the 6 to 12 degrees above average in February and March, but we are continuing this trend of warmer than usual spring. And in fact, year to date through the first 4 months here, we're currently on pace for the 6th warmest year on record. So that's not too notable as we've been in kind of our winter and spring months, but it is something to watch because if that warmth continues here into the summer months, we could definitely see some heat associated with that as well. For precipitation, really our statewide number was very impressive. So our state average total for April was 6.01 inches of rainfall, greater than 2 inches above average, and Missouri's 15th wettest April on record. And so what's really interesting is now that we add our April to our yearly record here, we now have above average precipitation year to date for January through April. So after the past few years of drought conditions, this is really great to see for the current calendar year. But we've definitely seen some swings between wet and dry so far this year, as 3 of our first 4 months of the year have either been a top 15 wettest or top 15 driest month during that time. So we're happy for the rainfall right now, but we definitely have flip-flopped a couple times already this year. But going back over the last week, really the pattern has been the same, and we've continued some of that wetness we've seen in April into May now as well. And so here we can see our precipitation from last Wednesday through Monday morning. And there was several areas of rainfall here, but overall, most of the state received at least a half to 1 inch of rainfall. But where you see those yellow colors on the map here, we did have some spots that had locally higher totals, 2 to 4 inches, that were in some of those stronger storms as well during the rainfall event. And then yesterday, this is just showing our radar precipitation from yesterday, Tuesday, and we added just a bit more rain as an area of low pressure was very slow to work east and out of the area yesterday. And in fact, northeastern Missouri actually picked up some pretty healthy rainfall, greater than a half inch, but for the most of the rest of the state, it was kind of just a gloomy day with spotty showers here and there. And so with all of this rainfall, we continue to see improvements to our U.S. drought monitor. This is the most recent map from last Thursday, but I would expect to continue seeing improvements to this map. Right now, really the only places that we're continuing to really be concerned about the dryness is in extreme southern and southeastern Missouri. The rest of the state is seeing some pretty dramatic improvements to our drought conditions here. So good news for really helping to alleviate those drought concerns that we took into this spring. And additionally, kind of looking back at the last week, this is showing some of our severe weather reports from last Wednesday, May 8th. So similar to how some locations got under those thunderstorms and saw the heavier rainfall, in a lot of those spots, we also had some severe weather. And so where you see those green dots in Southwest Missouri, those are all hail reports really from earlier on the day, Wednesday. But you can see as those storms really moved east, saw more damaging winds in Southeast Missouri, and also red dots show we had a number of EF0 and EF1 tornadoes with minor damage. And with this kind of wet pattern we had in April and now May, we've also had a lot of severe weather and are actually ahead of normal or above average for this time of year for the amount of severe weather reports we've seen. And so in addition to the severe weather, we're now on about week 3 of also having flood warnings throughout the state based on all of this rainfall. And so here you can see as of today, it's mostly just the Mississippi River through almost all of Missouri that has a flood warning right now. But I would expect some more to be issued over the coming days because we're expecting more rainfall through the end of the week. And so May so far has really continued our trend of April. So far we're continuing to see those warmer than normal temperatures in May, anywhere from 1 to 5 degrees above average at some of our major sites. If we look at precipitation, all of our sites are close to average or above average so far as we've seen more of this wetter pattern. But I will note here on this map here that shows our percent of normal precipitation so far this month. We do have a couple locations in Northeast Missouri and West Central that have been a little bit drier than usual so far this month, but not much of a concern with short-term dryness based on how wet we had been in late March and April as well. Additionally, looking ahead, not much change in the forecast. We're really expected to see another active week ahead with many rain chances in the forecast. And so I'm going to show 4 maps here and kind of quickly walk through, but these are just kind of our surface charts here that show what the weather pattern will look like across the United States. But starting in the top left here in 7 a.m. Wednesday, we've currently got an area of low pressure with this red L in southwest Kansas. And if you kind of follow this through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, this area of low pressure is going to very slowly work across our part of the country. And as you can see, bring a pretty slow moving rainmaker with it here. And so we're really expecting to see pretty widespread rainfall in the southern half of Missouri Thursday and Friday before things move out to the east on Saturday. To go along with that, I much like the most recent weeks, I probably sound like a broken record. We will have a severe weather threat on Thursday and Friday with some of these storms as well. And so here I'm showing maps from the Storm Prediction Center. Right now, we're just in a marginal risk for severe weather, which is pretty low on their scale here, but can't rule out hail, damaging winds, or even an isolated tornado in these storms. However, again, this is a pretty low end risk. I think really our bigger concern, again, in southern Missouri might be a flash flood threat where we might see locally heavier rainfall and soils are very saturated and streams and creeks are already pretty high. So wouldn't take a whole lot of rainfall to create some of these flooding concerns. And so here showing a couple maps here from the Weather Prediction Center that put us in a slight risk for flash flooding and again, in the southern half of the state. And so if we put this together and really look at this event through Saturday morning here with this map on the right, these are going to show our forecast precipitation amounts through Saturday morning. And it's going to be a good rainfall event for southern Missouri. And where you see these areas of purple, that is up to 2 inches of rainfall. And so there is the tendency for maybe some of those locally heavier amounts that could lead to flooding in those areas. But then once we get to Saturday, I think Saturday might be my pick of the week for a day to get outside and enjoy the weather. We will have warm temperatures in the lower 80s and pretty clear skies on Saturday as that system moves off to our east. So actually looks a lot like this past Saturday, and so looks like a good day statewide to get outside. I'll show here Sunday. It looks like another nice day with warm temperatures, but on the bottom right here, we can look at that probability of precipitation, and we see by later in the day Sunday, 30 to 40% chance of rainfall getting into northern Missouri. And that's because next Monday through Wednesday, we're expecting another rainmaker to impact the state. This time, it looks like the heavier totals for the northern half of Missouri. So you'll get your turn after this weekend for more rainfall there. And so I'll end looking at our Climate Prediction Center outlooks for the very end of May. So this is going to be valid pretty much the last week of May here. Not a lot of confidence in the temperature forecast here, really kind of indicating near normal temperatures for Missouri. But I do definitely want to show that the forecast right now is for a higher probability of above average precipitation here. And as you can see on the map, it's really centered right on Missouri here. And so still a ways out, but it looks like this week 2 period could be pretty active as well. So really looking at the forecast right now, no signs of things drying out or slowing this active pattern at the moment. So hopefully you're still finding some time to get outside and get out and work in between the rainfall events over the past few weeks. And so that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Zach. It looks like I need to get my tomatoes in really quick in between the rain events here. So, all right, I really appreciate that. So our next speaker today is actually a guest from Missouri Department of Agriculture. This is Jennifer Kleethermes, and she is going to talk to us about the State Fair Vegetable Contest. So Jennifer, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for having me on this hour. It's so nice to be part of fellow gardeners. And yes, I got to get my tomato plants out too. So there's a small part of time. All of us will be working in the garden this weekend, it sounds like. So I don't know, I'm going to share my screen here and make sure that you guys can see this. If you've known about the Missouri State Fair Horticulture Contest, it has been around for a long time. And can everybody see my slide? I'm thinking so.
Yes, we're good. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the horticulture contest has been part of the state fair for many, many years. And it's a wonderful way to showcase your expertise, your hard work and craftsmanship in the garden. And then also actually get a little bit of cash to be actually to put back into your garden, back into your seeds, back into your shovels and rakes and all that jazz. So I'm here to spread the word. I came about being the horticulture superintendent, and this is going to be my 4th year. It has been so much fun and a beautiful event to see all the wonderful fruits and vegetables that have come throughout the state. So when is it? Let's just this is just a little bit of information. So this happens, the horticulture contest happens before the state fair. The state fair is August 8th, I believe, through the 18th of some sorts. For the horticulture contest, entries need to arrive at the state fair in the Ag Building on August 6th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's a whole list of rules that you can look, and the rules kind of give information about how many specimens that you need per entry. Like for instance, on onions, you need 4 onions on a plate, which we have the plates provided to enter into the onion category. Let's just say there's another, you need 4 cucumbers to enter into the cucumber category. All those rules are listed out in the Missouri Missouri State Fair website. It's in the chat under building exhibitors and then under ag building specific. So look through there, go and look for those rules. It's super cheap to actually enter into it. It's $1 per entry. So if you're entering into the cucumber class, it's $1. Just remember, I only take cash and check. So if you're going to be doing that, and then the winnings are cash. So again, this is something that I want to help improve horticulture and gardening throughout the whole entire state. And you might want to know, like, how much can I actually win? So for an entry of a normal set, which is basically like your cucumbers, your eggplants, not your largest stuff, it's $50 for first place, $30 for second, and $20 for third place. That's pretty good. And then if you want to get into the big competitions, into my largest, you can win some good cash. So our largest, we have the largest pumpkin contest. The first place winner wins $650, then $450, then $250. Watermelon is the first is $400. And my tomatoes, which is a brand new competition that we've had in the last 2 years. Thank you, Trinkline Garden Greenhouses. It's $150. This is a great opportunity to have some fun, some great competition. We've had some whoppers of some pumpkins, as you've kind of see in front of us this year, in front of these pictures. The largest in my set has been a 751.5 pound pumpkin. And every year we have to get it off of the back of a truck, as you can see with the forklift. It's pretty amazing. So the pumpkin and the watermelon, definitely those are amazing competitions. But let's say you're just a backyard gardener and you can't do those kind of competitions. Well, then you definitely should take advantage of the tomato. The tomato is on a much smaller scale. Our largest last year was 2 pounds, 2.362 pounds. So that was a really large tomato, but I know you guys have probably grown some that are similar to that. So here's just some frequently asked questions that somebody might have and might need. Do I need to pre-register? No, you do not need to pre-register. You can come day of. Because we wanted to make it that, what if you don't have 4 cucumbers? What if you don't have 4 tomatoes that kind of look the same? So you can pre-register, you can register that day. Can you pre-register? Yes, you can. You do have to pre-register by July 20th online at the Missouri State Fairgrounds. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, besides the largest competitions, which are just on weight, the rest of it is based on quality, condition, representativeness, and uniformity. So as you can kind of see the background behind here, those are 4 lovely eggplants, and they all kind of match. They're very similar. They're very clean. They look nice. That's what we're judging on. Another question I always get, can I get my veggies back? Yes, of course. We do like to display the first and the second winners of the classes. So all the participants at the state fair can go by the cooler and kind of check those out. But if you don't make it in the first and second, you could pick them up on August 7th after the judging competition happens from 2 to 4 p.m. When do I get paid is another one. Missouri State Fair tries its best, just so everybody knows, to get all the winnings paid out by the end of the year. So it might take a few months, but don't be reassured, you'll get your winnings. And if you are planning to enter, helpful hint, bring mailing address stickers. You know those stickers that you get in the mail that have like your mailing address? Because every entry that you enter, you have to go and put your name and your address on there so we can make sure to match up your veggies with you as the person. Those mailing address stickers make it really easy, and you could just stick them on. And I just wanted to kind of mention a shout out to our sponsors. These organizations and companies have been great at sponsoring us. Missouri Master Gardener Association, I'm hoping that most of you are master gardeners yourselves. They have been so gracious to sponsor us at the pumpkin contest. Rural Missouri sponsors our watermelon contest. They have been a lifelong sponsor for sure. Trinkline Greenhouses does our tomatoes. And then Strawberry Hill Farms, which is north, a little bit south of Ashland, north of Ashland, actually. Wonderful nursery. They have been a sponsor. And of course, Missouri Grown. So I wanted to say thank you to all of our sponsors. And I am here for questions. So if you have questions for me today, you can ask me, but then also if you have questions for me in the future, here's my contact information, email, phone call. Love to talk about gardening. I'm an amateur gardener, so I need lots of advice. So I'd love to hear from everyone. So thank you very much. And let's see if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Jennifer. And if you do have questions, you can always put those in the chat and we can get to them that way as well. That was really good information. So thank you for that. I had no idea those cash prices were that large.
Yeah, you might as well try. For
exactly, exactly. Okay, so our next speaker is Jennifer Schutter. She is from the Kirksville region, and she is going to talk to us about show us your large vegetables and see how we can a new segment we're going to try out here on the Garden Hour. Jennifer?
Yes, hello everyone, and good afternoon. And we thought it would be fun for all of you to show us some of your large vegetables, fruits, and flowers right here on the Garden Hour this summer. And I grew this large lettuce recently. It is a butterhead. It measured 25 inches wide, and it was very tasty, actually. And I attended an FFA banquet last night and cut that all up, and there was none left at the end of that banquet. So we would like for you all to show us what you are growing in your vegetable garden or your flower garden or on your fruit trees. If you grow a large apple this fall, we would like to see it. So submit photos of the produce or the flowers, and we will show it on here. So submit it the same way you would submit a question, and then we will show it here on the Garden Hour. That's all I have.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm always amazed, and some of those zucchinis can get huge, and some of the other gourds and things like that. So that'll be a fun thing to do. So please send us your pictures. All right, next we have Pong, who is going to do his segment on I See a Sick Plant and see what we can learn about plant diseases. Pong?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peng Tian, the Director of Plant Diagnostic Clinic at the University of Missouri. Let's see what we got here today for I See Sick Plants. The dogwood, the state flower for Missouri. You must love it. I love the flower. They're beautiful. Do you love the flowers with the small dots on the petal? So let me know. If you see the two photos I'm showing here, you can see those little pinkish or purplish dots on the flower, and the flower looks okay, and there's no diebacks. The newer leaves still growing out strong. There are no dead twigs. So what would you think about the cause of these symptoms? There's a long list, 6 options for you. Fungus, abiotic disorder, bacterial blight, insect damage, herbicide damage, or it's just about a variety. What do you think? I give you 30 seconds to vote. Thank you, Jared. Thank you for voting. Some people need more time to think, right? Okay, I'm gonna give you maybe 10 more seconds. All right, I'm gonna review the answer now. Review the poll result. So we have 2 big groups focusing on bacterial blight and fungus. They're very close. Let me review the answer. This is actually caused by a fungus. So this disease can not only affect the flower, but also affect on the leaf, showing those leaf spots. So this disease is called spot anthracnose, caused by Alcino cornea. People also give another name called Alcino leaf spot. This disease can produce small, rounded, purplish, pinkish border spot, but with a white center, and they can affect multiple structure of the plant. They normally overwinter on the twigs, and infection began as new growth emerged in the spring. like the weather now in Missouri, that's their favorite temperature and the weather condition. And the good thing that they can only cause cosmetic issue that will not kill the tree. With that being said, you need to be cautious. Don't be confused with the dogwood anthracnose. Today we talk about spot anthracnose, but there's one disease called a dogwood anthracnose caused by a fungus, Discula destructiva, and this anthracnose can cause leaf necrosis, wilting, and cankers that can eventually girdle the trunk and branches, resulting in stem dieback as well as dead trees. So as you can see, this is the symptoms on the leaves, on the marginal death, and over time, the symptom gonna continue to develop onto the twigs, the stem, and even the trunk. So as you can see, the scientific name, Discula destructiva. You don't want to name any of your pets or your family relatives as this because it is very destructive. And with that, if you think you may have this disease on your dogwood, I would recommend you to contact Missouri Department of Conservation. They do have a hotline to look out for this disease. Or you can send to my lab for confirmation, and we will do diagnosis work to identify this pathogen. That's what I have, the spot anthracnose of dogwood. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peng. I appreciate that. Very interesting information there. Okay. Next we have Jennifer is going to talk to us about a question that came in. With all of the wet weather, a grower had a flush of mushrooms around a rose bush, and she was concerned, or he was concerned about what to do. So Jennifer is going to answer that question today.
Thank you, Gwen. Yes. So the question is, what can I do about the mushrooms that I have growing at the base of my roses? And so here you see the photo of the rose bush, and you see those mushrooms under there. Well, this morning we all looked at this as a group and have determined that the rose is not actually producing the mushrooms, that there is likely a lot of organic matter in that mulch. And also with all the recent rains, or maybe even watering, there's a high moisture content. So we believe that the mushrooms, which we're not sure which type they are, okay, we recommend not eating them. So please do not eat them, but just scrape them away, knock them off, and then pick them up, bag them, and throw them away. And again, they're there most likely because of the high moisture content and high organic matter content. But again, just break them off and throw them away. And that's all. And I'll take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. All right, so next we are going to be talking about cucumbers, and Debi Kelly will be leading us on that learning. Debi?
Yeah, hi everyone. I've got my PowerPoint up, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. Sorry, guys. All right. So there are a lot of cucumbers that are around and about. And so we as a group decided that I would talk a little bit about cucumbers. So some interesting facts, which I thought was awfully interesting, of course, is that cucumbers actually originated in India. And a lot of times we hear the expression cool as a cucumber. And where that expression came from actually is that the inside of the cucumber is actually 20 degrees cooler than the outside of the cucumber, which I thought was really fascinating. And so years ago, when people had fevers, they would take cucumbers and cut them open and lay them all over on the body to help with trying to control a fever, which I thought was also very, very interesting. Cucumbers contain about 96% water, so we have to always make sure that we water our plants well. And actually in 1876, the Heinz Company actually started processing and making pickles. And from that date forward, we have cucumbers not only as fresh, but also as pickling. And cucumbers are also one of the top 5 vegetables in all of the gardens across the world. So let's look at the cucumbers. There are actually 2 different categories. We have what we call slicers and picklers. Our slicing cucumbers are pickling cucumbers. So the slicers are actually eaten fresh. They generally are about 4 to 12 inches long, and they have a relatively smooth skin on them. If they're a pickling type of a cucumber, those are the ones that are going to be usually processed. They are much smaller, or shorter rather, in their length, 1 to about 5 inches long. And they will also have a lot of bumps on the skin. And you can see here in this picture, there looks like there's a lot of bumps that are there. So if you're at the farmer's market and purchasing, or if you're growing your own cucumbers and you don't remember because you didn't tag them where you put which cucumbers and what portion of your garden, as they start to grow, just look at the length as well as, is it a smooth skin or are there bumps on that skin? And that can help you to decipher what type of cucumber it might be. We also have other categories such as standard, restricted vines, and burpless. So the standards are actually going to be what we consider the traditional types of cucumbers, where they actually have a spread of the plant itself about anywhere between 4 to 6 feet. I'm sorry, it should be 4 to 6 feet on there, so that's my mistake. And they should be placed about 4 to 5 feet apart in a row. That gives them plenty of room to actually grow, to spread, to do what they need to do. The other ones, the restricted vines, they're more of a dwarf-like type of a plant. They're more bush-like, and they only need about 2 square feet in order for them to grow. So you have different kinds of growth patterns on that. So when you go to select your seeds, make sure you definitely read the seed packet so you know which type you've got, if it's a standard or if it's a restricted vine. And then, of course, we have the burpless kind, and those usually are going to be long and narrow. The other thing about the burpless is that they will have a very thin skin. So looking at how we actually produce them, or the growth of the cucumbers, they're very easy to grow. They do prefer the soil temperature to be at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit in order for them to grow well. And one of the things we have to remember is that a cucumber is a warm season crop. And just like tomatoes, and a lot of times we want to put our vegetables out in the ground as soon as we can, which is fine. The cooler temperature in the soil will not hurt or harm the vegetable. All it's really going to do is have that vegetable, when it's a warm season crop, just sit there and not have a lot of growth because the temperature of the soil is a little bit too chilly. So sometimes it's okay to wait just a little bit longer in the spring, even though we really want to get them in. Sometimes just waiting a little bit longer will do fine. They love to have the full sun and very well drained and loamy soil, if at all possible. They are a heavy feeder, and they also need an adequate amount of water. Remember, they're 96% water. Mulching is going to be good because it's going to help retain that water and the moisture in the soil, as well as helping to prevent weeds, so you will have less competition there. The vast majority of the cucumbers are going to mature within 50 to 60 days. Some of the different insects that we have, especially the ones that are going to be of most prominence on this, is going to be the cucumber beetles. They can be either the striped ones or the spotted ones. Sorry, the picture on the right is a little blurry, but at least you all know what they look like. Aphids can also be an issue, as well as the squash vine borer. And here you can see the larva of that squash vine borer, and you can also see the damage. Essentially, the adult will lay its egg on the stem. The larva will hatch from that egg. It will eat and tunnel within that stem, and then it will come out eventually from that stem itself. The best ways to control these insects are going to be hand picking, which can be pretty difficult with those cucumber beetles because they can move a little quickly at times. Floating row covers can help to prevent those insects from actually coming. And then, of course, we have our insecticides. So make sure you read the label, because the label is the law when you're looking at using insecticides for any kind of control. So some of the diseases that are most prominent, you're going to have the bacteria wilt, and that's going to be vectored. So when we say vector, it means that there is an insect that is transmitting the disease from one plant to the other plant, because that disease is going to be on the inside of that plant. And usually it's the cucumber beetle that will do that. So you'll notice that the plants around here are all looking fine except for this one particular plant. If that occurs, then chances are you have bacteria wilt. The best way to check for that is to go ahead and cut a stem and then slowly pull that stem apart, and you can see the bacteria are actually streaming back and forth between those two pieces of that particular stem. Another type of disease is going to be the powdery mildew. And a good way to try to control that is to make sure that you've got plenty of spare space for air circulation around all of your plants. So be careful, especially if you're going after the standard cucumbers, that you definitely give them the space to grow. Eliminate weeds, use drip irrigation if at all possible, and try to eliminate that overhead watering. We can't do anything about Mother Nature, but we do the best that we can. And then you could also try to use some fungicides, but remember that fungicides don't kill the fungus. They actually help to keep the fungus in check and keeping it from spreading. If you do use fungicides, just make sure that you use them on a rotating basis so they don't develop disease or resistance. The fungus doesn't develop resistance to the fungicide that's being used. That's all that I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie. I always, if I get into hot food, spicy food, I always have a cucumber sitting on the side. That seems to cool my mouth a little bit. I don't know if that's psychological or if that really works or not, but works for me. All right, so next we have Katie, and Katie is going to talk to us about what's going on in the garden right now. Katie?
All right, can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes and yes.
All right, so I always like, well, any time of year, honestly, I'm always out looking at plants and seeing what's going on. So I have a few pictures that are of some fun things, and also some that are so fun, maybe, that are going on in the garden right now. So yesterday I was out walking my dog, and we scared a squirrel out of the mulberry tree, and I finally looked up and I was like, wow, the mulberry is loaded and they are ripe. Typically I have to really work to beat the squirrels and the birds to ripe mulberries, and if I get one or two, I feel pretty lucky. However, I kind of wonder, with the cicadas being out, that perhaps the birds are busy with the cicadas, and even squirrels will eat cicadas. So I am pretty lucky and getting, I just picked a handful real quick and enjoyed those for a snack last night. And I plan to be picking more because they are one that I do really enjoy. Something else that was blooming yesterday, I don't know if anybody is familiar with what this is, but these are the blooms of persimmons. So this is a little tree that came up volunteer, so it's kind of nice there at the edge of the woods that I can actually see and observe the blooms. Because I think they're very interesting to look at, and in the fall we'll have lots of persimmon fruit. So for one of those that's not so fun, we're just past the stage. On the left, you see this is cedar apple rust. On the left, you see the hard gall that was on the cedar tree earlier. That gall will be there after that center picture of the orange fungal bloom. That's kind of finished up with all of our rain this year. We've seen a lot of the cedar apple rust on the cedar form that looks like this orange jelly fingers coming out of the cedars. And then its second host is the apple trees. So apples, crab apples, and there are a few others. So you can see the leaf spots that are caused by that fungal disease, and you can also sometimes see damage on fruits, and it can get severe enough that we will see defoliation of trees. So in Missouri, that's why it's really important if you want to have apples that you look for varieties that are resistant to cedar apple rust. This is one that we get questions about every year, and I noticed, luckily this is a previous year's picture, but it is called nostoc or nosttic. It is a lovely jelly slimy fungus, and I have seen a bit of it in my driveway this year. Usually we see more of it when there are drainage issues, which in a driveway, yeah, there are drainage issues. And of course, we have had lots of rain here recently that this has come up. There aren't a whole lot of good control methods. You definitely don't want to go or be careful if you have to walk across an area like this because it can be very slick. We do see it in yards. A lot of times when the grass isn't, the stand is thinner, and we can scrape it off and remove it that way is one way to help control it. And then finally, some pretties that are blooming right now. The top left picture is Coreopsis that's blooming in my garden right now. The bottom big yellow picture is Missouri primrose. I have some that I started from seed in my garden, and I also, there's a few places that I drive that I enjoy seeing the Missouri primrose blooming on some bluffs. The top center picture is spiderwort. There are native versions and non-native versions, and some of them spread rapidly, and some are clump forming. The one that I have is clump forming and is blooming pretty right now. The bottom is one that I had bought. It's another Missouri native that is called rock pinks is one name for it, and it's a succulent, and it gets these long shoots with this vibrant pink flower that I absolutely love. And the one on the right is, all of a sudden I've lost the name of it, but it is a bush. Anybody can join in and tell me all of a sudden what the name is.
Shining Blue Star.
That's it, yes. And it is blooming right now. It does freely seed in, but if I keep it controlled to that one area, and nice, that blue, light blue color. All of these really do attract our pollinators. And then some to be watching for. The verbena on the left is the native verbena. I've been seeing it on roadsides a lot when I'm driving around the state here recently. And one cool thing about this plant is that its color depends on where it is growing. Some areas it's more purple colored, and some areas it's more pink, depending on that soil type. And then I also look forward to, I see lots and lots of buds on all the butterfly milkweed. So this one is blooming. It's not quite blooming yet on the roadsides, but getting close. And usually about the time that it is blooming is when they start mowing the roadsides. So I'm always a little disappointed that I don't actually get to see the full bloom. But this was one in my garden last year. Unfortunately, it did not come back this year, but I planted some more. And in the background, you see purple poppy mallow. I thought that made a striking combination. So I just encourage you to get out in the garden, particularly when this weather is nice, and go check out what is blooming.
Thanks, Katie. You're a little bit ahead of us up here in the northwest part of the state. We're just starting to see the flower beds form. I've seen a few of those flowers out, but it's kind of interesting to see how that transitions across the state as we move north. Very cool. Thank you.
So Gwen, we do have one question that came in.
Sure.
And it is for Jennifer. They are wanting to know if the mushrooms from the rose picture can be composted.
Well, that is a good question, and I am not sure. So we don't know if that mushroom is poisonous or not. We recommend not eating it. And so I'm going to say, since we don't know, I would not put it in my compost. And I will ask my colleagues if they have any thoughts, but that's my thoughts. I would not put it in mine because we don't know if it's poisonous or not.
I would
Anyone
not
else?
want to risk the spores spreading to other areas. And so my recommendation would also be not to compost it.
Okay, so that's our answer. Do not compost it.
So we
Yeah.
have another question that came in for Katie. Why does the butterfly milkweed not come back as a perennial?
So I suspect my reality on quite a few things that I had that did not come back this year was our drought conditions last year and drought conditions over the winter. Regardless of the fact that the Missouri natives a lot of times are able to withstand drought, we can go to the extreme and still have not enough water. And a lot of times as gardeners, we don't necessarily think about dry winters. We think plants are all dormant. They don't need any water. It doesn't matter. We're just not in that mode to think about it. So a lot of times those dry periods are what gets us even more than growing season. And sometimes it's site, what the site is like, and those conditions also.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next we are going to be talking about the water holding capacity of the little moisture crystals that we sometimes see in the store and just see how to use them. Donna?
Okay. Thank you, Gwen. So I have had a lot of questions come into my office since we've had a drought 2 years in a row. How can I improve the water holding capacity of my soil? And one of the options that people tend to ask about is, what about these water crystals? Do they work? Well, there are several versions out on the market. Be aware of that. There's not any one brand to be searching out. Take a look at all of them. They're all pretty much, they are all comparable. Realize that they're a small polymer, and when they get wet, they hold water. Now, on the right-hand side, you see the person's hand with the dried crystals. And then on the left-hand side would be where they've been moisture's been added and they swell up. So when you mix this into your soil, just envision that your soil is going to puff up a little and it's going to be holding moisture down in there. Now, everything I've read about them, because I have used them before, and all my research has pointed they are not for our normal soil. It is only for pots and in containers where we have added a peat based type soil. And so just keep in mind, you can go after these. They are a little pricey. There are some pros and cons to them. And so, one thing to realize is there's all sorts of soil mixes already out there with these soil crystal agents in them. And so you can find the already ready to go potting mix that have the crystals, or you can buy them yourself and add them into it. Now, I've tried not to be brand biased, so hopefully you realize there's lots of different brands out there that can accommodate what you're needing. So let's talk about the positives and the negatives. Well, the main positives to using these type of tools per se is, one is you don't have to water as much. And that the plants will stay wetter longer. Now, those are two really good things that happen. Now, if you are someone that waters too much, then this can be very detrimental. And so you just have to realize that you have to back off on the watering if you do use it, or gauge your watering and learn what dry is, learn what wet is. And I know that's a simple concept, but you'd be surprised that I can walk up to a pot and it look like it's dry, but it's really wet, and vice versa. So that's what I always tell people. Learn what the dry is, learn what the wet is. The bad parts about this is, one, it's costly. It can add quite a bit of money to your planting. They are made of a possible carcinogen, and that's that second line, the acrylamide. They don't last forever, so it's not one and done. So you might get a couple of years after out of the crystals, but after they have dried down so many times, they won't reabsorb the water. They don't work well in clay soils, and I've already mentioned that before. They're not for our native soils. The other thing that they find is that the more fertilizer you use, the more you can decrease the water uptake of those crystals and shorten their life. And so you can't do a massive amount of fertilizing and have these work. If you are that overwaterer, you can get root rot started fast by using these crystals. So they might not be a good option if you tend to overwater. Also, what they have found in the last several years is that they can lead to soil heaving or soil expansion. So you have this nice pot that you've just potted up, you've put all your flowers in it, and then, you've already mixed this into the soil before you plant, of course. But once you water it in, you notice that the soil starts bumping up in areas, and that's that expansion of the crystals. And so you have to keep an eye on that. You may have to push it back down. The other part of it is, if we end up in a bad drought, these crystals can actually do more damage than they can be doing good. And so just keep that in mind. So if you're not a good water and you use them in your pots and you're not watering enough, they can actually pull water from the roots and leave the roots hanging. So you've got to be careful. This is a tool on the market for helping to not water as often, but it doesn't mean don't water at all. And it doesn't mean overwatering. And so just keep that in mind. It's a tool to use and it can help, but you still have to, as my mom always says, use your head and think about what you're doing. And so if you choose to use the water crystals, they can be beneficial. And so I'll turn it back over to you, Gwen.
All right, that sounds great. I've always wondered about those, and that gives me a little bit more information about that. So our next presenter will be Jennifer Schutter, and she is going to talk to us about some problems that we might have with peony bushes. Jennifer?
All right, let's talk about some of the peony or peony problems that you may see. And this photo you see here, I just took the other day, and I always love seeing the bumblebees and other pollinators in the peonies and other flowers. Well, this is a problem that you might encounter. It's called bud blast, and it is caused by anything that is causing the plant stress. It's a condition where the peony flower buds that just fail to open. And every year it seems like I have a few buds on my peony plants that do not open. And I'm, not really sure why, but here are a few reasons that could be the cause. So one is infertile soil, being planted too deep, or maybe they've settled over the years and now they're too deep. They may be immature plants. They could be getting too much shade. We could have gone through a drought and they were just moisture stressed. And then cold weather injury or late spring frost damage. And again, we call this bud blast. So here are a few other things that will cause peony flowers to fail to open. I mentioned the bud blast, and then immature plants that have fewer than 3 eyes. Being planted too deep, and over time we know that some plants do settle and they just get too deep and you have to transplant them. Fall is a good time to transplant peonies if you need to do that. not getting enough sun or in too much shade, competition from surrounding trees and shrubs, excessive nitrogen fertilizer, being undernourished, like weak plants, small plants, and then the foliage being removed before the next year's flowers are set. So you don't want to cut off your peony foliage until they turn yellow and brown and that foliage dies back. So all these are reasons why your peony or peony flowers may fail to produce. This is frost injury. I have seen this before. Maybe you guys have seen this on your peony plants. We get a late spring frost or freeze, and you'll see this occur. Powdery mildew is very common in peonies. We tend to see this during, humid weather, wet weather, even as we go into fall, often in late summer. Those of us that have not cut our foliage back by then, you may see it at that time. So it is caused by a fungus. It produces a light gray or whitish powder on the surface of the leaves, the stems, and the flowers. And it may be unsightly, but it's probably not going to cause death of your peony plant. And if you want, you can use a fungicide to try to control this. And here we have the ants. And sometimes people think that ants are needed for the peonies to bloom, and that is just simply not true. They are on there because they are attracted to the sugary droplets or the nectar that are on the outside of the flowers, or maybe even the honeydew, which is produced by scale insects, which are a bad insect. But the ants are perfectly fine to have there. They're totally harmless. And then here are the scale insects. These are harmful insects. They cling to the stems of the peony plants, and they will suck the life out of them. They will cause your leaves to turn yellow, and they may drop leaves. It can cause stunting and reduce growth of the plant. And what you need to do if you see scale on your peonies is to get some horticultural oil, which you can purchase at a local garden center or maybe a farm store, and apply that, and that will smother the scales. And here we have herbicide injury. This is something we never want to see on our ornamental plants or vegetables, but we often do this time of the year. And if you have peonies that look twisted or deformed, or they have distorted growth, you may very well have herbicide injury. You might also have some spots on the leaves like you see in this center photo. So when the herbicide drifts, the particles will land and you'll see little white spots. And in severe cases, you'll see your peony plants look like the photo here on the right. So that's some pretty severe damage where you can actually see the droplets where they landed. You can see the distorted growth, and that poor peony bush doesn't look real good there, but it did come out of that. And this year it is doing just fine. And then here's a beautiful peony plant that we have growing here at the Adair County Extension Center in Kirksville. I love this one and just wanted to show you guys how pretty this one is. And that's all I have on this topic.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think that the smell of the peonies it's one of my favorites in the spring. I just can't wait for them to bloom. Well, folks, I want to thank you for staying with us today. And we had so many topics, so I hope that you felt like you've learned something. I want to just remind you that we are running weekly through the summertime, through the growing season from noon to 1 p.m. If you have any questions that you would like for us to answer during the garden hour, you can submit them to this web address, ipm.missouri.edu/townhalls. Also, send in your large vegetables or your large fruits or your large flowers or whatever you have growing in your garden right now, because I think that will be really, really fun to see. Also, if you want to save the chat, because there's a lot of information that gets dropped into that, just open up your chat, go to the top, you'll see the 3 little buttons, you'll get the drop down, and then there's a bar that comes up that says save chat, and it will save that chat to your desktop or to wherever you say it needs, wherever you want it to go. So in closing, I just want to put the map up again so that you can remember where all of us are located around the state. And I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you can get out there and plant some tomatoes and other garden plants and just enjoy the spring. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you later.